welcome to Energy in Africa webinar for the month of February, and we are discussing carbon market in 2026, basically how to raise finance, for renewable energy startups on this part of the world, in Nigeria and by extension in Africa, and not just raising finance, but what the whole ecosystem is all about, getting funds, investment, and things like that. So those are the kind of conversation we'll be having. Today with me, I'm being joined with Mr. Muyiwa Sami, who is the CEO of Luma Power, and Ms. Joy Osomiamhe, if I pronounce that correctly. And she's the regional manager for, pardon me, just a minute here, so I don't say that wrongly. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So she's the regional manager of World Energy Council, and she's also the co-founder of G-Sel network, which is into renewable energy energy transition dialogues. And she's basically she's a project governance and advocacy leader for the past 10 years, and we'll be having conversation. Also, Mr. Daniel Komalafe, who is also the CEO of First Electric, will be joining us, but he told me we'll be running late a bit, so probably we'll be starting without him. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to the panelists. Mr. Muyiwa, are you there? Ms. Joy, are you there? Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm here.
Yeah. Okay, so what's the issue? Okay. Anthony Collins, please, would you accept the panel list that has been sent to you by the technical person? Just a minute, please. Okay. Some of these things are unavoidable since they are technical issues, so it's not like it's what we like to do, but we'll start anyway. Mr. Muyiwa, while we're waiting for Ms. Joy to accept the panelists, can you at least just introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Muyiwa Sami. My name is Muyiwa Sami. I'm trying to turn on my camera just for people to see my face. So I'm Muyiwa Sami. I'm the CEO of Luma Power Africa. So Luma Power Africa is a solar solutions company. We are actually an offshoot of Candlelight Engineering Company that has been around for about 48 years in the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing space. So Luma Power is one of the companies that, we are pretty much into solar solutions for residential customers, industrial customers, commercial customers. We also do, solar maintenance for our customers. We have, cleaning services for solar panel cleaning and all that stuff. So we are pretty much in that solar space, design, installation, and maintenance of solar systems. Been around for about maybe three years now. Like I said earlier, we're an offshoot of Candlelight Engineering Company, an established MEP contractor in the Nigerian space.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Muyiwa, and it's good to really have you here. You say you've been there for over 4 decades, an offshoot of another company who I think it's an engineering company.
Correct.
Yes, sir. So what exactly is your own service as in Luma Power itself? What do you guys do as apart from the mother company itself?
So we are solar solutions, like I said. We design, we install, and we maintain solar systems, solar power systems for our customers across all sectors. So sectors we serve include residential. Like I said, we also serve segments within the commercial sector. So you have SMEs like small shops. We serve hospitals. We serve schools. We serve churches. We serve office spaces. We also serve restaurants, hotels, just name it. Anyone that requires solar to be able to run efficiently. We serve that. Even filling stations also are some of our customers.
Oh, okay, absolutely brilliant. And since you've been in the space for quite some time, I think I would like to ask you, since we're talking about financing, what does financing looks like in the ecosystem, raising financing, getting funding, ensuring that you have partners and things like that. What does it look like for you in the ecosystem? So what do you notice is going on, and how is it different from other sectors?
Yeah, so from my experience, the solar space is a bit different from what you will see in the core tech space, because we try to say solar is solar tech or whatever we begin to coin it as, because everybody wants to infuse some kind of technology into whatever they're doing, be it AI, be it IoT, whatever it is that you can do, to make tech help your business, scale fast, or also kind of help with efficiency. So a lot of, people seem to see solar as technology now. And then there is that talk about financing for solar startups like ours. We are looking in that space, maybe not as actively as we should. I will be honest with you, not as actively as we should, but we are looking into that space and trying to see how we can attract some financing. So there's a lot of talk around financing and how to attract financing for solar companies just like us. I've seen a few that have been successful in doing that. So I believe there's a method to it. There's opportunities out there. It's just pretty much getting yourself ready, doing all that you need to do, all of the homework you need to do, all the preparations, getting your financials in order, having processes in place, governance, making sure that you have a good story to tell, to be able to attract the right financing, and also knowing what kind of financing you need at every point in time. I think, it's very good to identify, am I looking for grants right now? Am I looking for, a debt funding? Am I looking for seed funding? Am I looking for Series A? What exactly are you looking for? It's good to know that and pretty much package yourself towards what you are looking for. Don't try to mix everything together.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And I will also add that having this kind of conversation is also one of the things that, has to do with, engaging, in the system, in the ecosystem to position yourself rightly for the right financing. I would definitely add that. We've now had Miss Joy here. There were some technical glitches before. Welcome, Miss Joy. It's good to have you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, very loud and clear.
Yes, we can.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I was about the first person that joined the call, so I was surprised when you said only Mr. Muyiwa was on the call. I think I joined on the wrong link, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's the name. The name we display was quite different, but it's actually good to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah, can you just introduce yourself for our audience as we continue?
Okay, brief introduction about me, background. My name is Joy. It's actually Joy Osomiamhe-O, so you didn't pronounce my name properly. Yeah, and I run the G-Sel network, and at the moment I'm with the World Energy Council as the regional manager for Africa. Yes, so that's me in a nutshell.
And you've been in the ecosystem for at least a decade. That's also part of
No,
so
I
you
have
know.
not been in the energy ecosystem for a decade. I've been in the sustainability space for over a decade, but the energy
Okay.
space, it's not extremely novel, but at the same time, it's a familiar terrain, I would
Oh,
say.
okay. Absolutely brilliant. It's good to have you. Okay, the conversation, like I asked Mr. Muyiwa, it's about the financing of the ecosystem, getting funding, ensuring that, there's sustainers, there's
Mm.
partnership and things like that. If I should ask you, what are the most promising sources for climate finance available, just from your own perspective for renewable energy startup in Nigeria today? What do you think are the opportunities there?
But first of all, we'll have to be able to do some distinguishing here. There are different tiers to this conversation. So
Absolutely.
there's climate finance that talks about the different scopes of emission in terms of climate, carbon accounting and carbon management, and there is so the climate finance has different tranches, which the renewable is one of the tranches of how climate funds can be channeled. So your question is, what are the different opportunities in Nigeria? There are different programs, and one of the most popular programs are like the Mission 300. There are different programs. There's this DS programs for the World Bank in Nigeria. There's this mission there. I don't know so much because I operate from a regional perspective. So I try to dig up what's happening so much.
Mission 300 is, I think that's more regional
Yeah,
than
that's
is
the
even.
regional. So that's why I said one of the most popular. I started from Mission 300 because that's within my region, deployed within the region. There's the World Bank Desk project. That's a national project. I think GIZ does a lot too around funding startups projects, and there's the Green Climate Fund, and of course there
Yeah.
are other DFI projects, British Investment International, the FMO, and all those other DFI projects. So the question around it is, do I go into details now? I want to believe, and I know for a start, for for the national organogram, I think the REA is the custodian of all the deployments of all the development finance. So when they
Yes.
are the opportunities for the renewable energy funding, any funding at all that's to do with renewable has to somehow be aligned with the deployment from the REA. So even if the World Bank wants to give you money, Development Finance wants to give you money, they are somehow very aligned with the REA structuring for finance. So it's important that every clean energy startups understand that they need to build that relationship, that operational relationship with the RA so that they can access DFI fundings, blended finance, and all of that, which will be
Absolutely. So the place of partnership is very, very important. The place of, knowing who is in the space is very, very important. Just about a month ago, we were having a conversation with REA, Energy in Africa, and they were talking about, looking for potential operators in the space, right? So, but I think that was in the northern part of the country. So there are always these opportunities out there, in my opinion, that, or you just have to put your ears down and, know what's going on and not play it alone. Still staying on the issue of partnership, I'll come back to Mr. Muyiwa. You mentioned the other time about raising fund, whether it's seed funding, whether it's equity, whether it's debt, whether it's maybe grant or whatnot. What do you see from the ecosystem? Like, what's the goal of partnership? What's the goal of collaboration? What's the goal of working together, whether it's form of equity or shared partnership? And how can that really help in scaling the industry? You're muted.
Okay, so can you hear me now?
Very well, loud and clear.
Okay, good. Yeah. So partnerships are quite important when it comes to staying in this space. And I think who you partner with also is very important. So we have set partnerships with financial institutions. And the reason why we have this is they already have demand. And when I say demand, they already have customers that actually need solar. So we can tap into some of these resources and help finance some of their customers. We are kind of a vendor to a few banks, and they already have that infrastructure in place that they can do risk assessments. They also have the funding. They are able to even attract funding for renewable energy type stuff, and we don't need to do all the work that they have already done. So for us, partnering with banks, also having partners that can help you scale. And when I say partners that can help you scale is, say you have a company that is looking to deploy solar in multiple locations, then, that's another partner you can, talk to, people like, say, the telcos, some filling stations, even eateries, schools that have multiple campuses, things like that. So those kind of partnerships kind of help you scale. It also helps with this, climate funding as well, because you're now looking at, I have multiple locations, I have, large projects, I can track, how much CO2 I'm offsetting and things like that. So you can actually attract, the kind of funding you need once you have all those metrics or all those numbers in place and there's a record for it. If you have smaller projects, it's a bit difficult to track when you have smaller projects, but when you have bigger ones, it's easier to, say, hey, we have maybe 100 locations for this customer and we've done XYZ when it comes to the numbers. So that's kind of how we go. So partners with them. So we partner with banks. We also have some partnerships with, a few organizations that have multiple locations. So that's kind of how I see the partnership thing works.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things I take from what you said is that some of these financial institutions like bank, they already have like a program, a scheme that they can actually help you scale. So you don't need to start creating or, trying to do it all by yourself. So you can actually plug into those schemes and then, get those finances, get those partnership and then scale through. Interestingly, I met with Mr. Muyiwa before and we've had conversation around this before. Around they do B2B more than just direct to individual. Yes, to individuals. So, and with that kind of project, you of course need huge financing when it comes to scaling. So, I agree with you on that you need those kind of partnership. I would like to come back to Miss Joy. You mentioned earlier that most of what you do is regional. When it comes to sustainability and whatnot, I would like to know from your own perspective, looking at it from a bird angle, a bird eye view. Is there any kind of difference for, Nigeria regulatory environment, in terms of the laws, the policies, the things we do, and other countries, in Africa, in terms of that is probably, would I say, an hindrance to financing the ecosystem? Is there like a difference? Is there something that you see that we are not doing or something that we need to do more, things like that?
On your conversation, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, you talk about what we need to do in terms of policy. So, from a regulatory perspective, I would say policy alignment plus partnership will lead to bankability. Because when you hear that people talk about off takes, guarantees, bank projects not being bankable, for that reason they cannot attract finance. It's not just even about the bankability of the project, it's also the discipline that comes with this funds being disbursed. How well have they been has they been disciplined enough to actually implement or apply those funds where they have been so I think one of the problems they have as a continent as a region is the discipline in projects. That project discipline is something that is very, and it's more of a cultural default for the region, and then if we are able to mitigate this project discipline issue that we have, and adhere to good policy alignments, definitely to lead to bankability. So, and once your project is bankable, you have the requirements in terms of the documentation that you need for that project. You've got the regular the generic PPA that is always required, that if we have to deploy a mini grid here, who are the off takers? Once I have that projection on who my off takers are, what are the verifiable performance, like the KPIs on the project that will lead to, okay, we get to this and we do this report and we get to, so this verifiable KPIs. And there are so many things about industrial, you every developer or of course, we know that they need to ensure that their portfolio deck is very robust. Without having a proper portfolio deck, one of the problems we have is the inadequate documentation. I've had the privilege to work closely with the African development banks. I've had the privilege to work on other small scale projects, mini grid projects, regional projects. When I mean regional projects, I mean not a state-owned project. I mean a region in terms of maybe a senatorial district, or a local government project that they're trying to do for a certain amount of people. And I've gone through the process of bankability, having been turned down that, oh, this project is not bankable enough. So I've had the privilege of advising on different power tracks projects, and based on that experience, I would say that project developers need to ensure that they make sure that their project, their portfolio pack, that's the deck for presentation and even reports, are very robust enough that you don't give your financiers any reason to want to question. When we have people raising up their hands, what do we do? Do we
No, okay, so I would respond to that in a minute. It's just
okay.
If you have a question to ask any of the panelists, you can actually drop your question in the Q&A box, the quiet chat. I think people raising their hand just want to ask a question or whatnot. So please, if you have a question, questions are welcome. Just drop your questions. I will skate through them and get to them, in the time being. So that's what they want to do.
Well, back to what I was saying, so data is very, very critical to tapping into the finance market, even if you're wanting to benefit from carbon credit. Have I mentioned that the custodians for the carbon credit funding and the green climate finance people, the custodian locally in Nigeria is the NCCC. A lot of people, I think the NCCC are quite very unpopular.
Okay.
But it's very important for people to understand that they are the custodian, just like the REA is the custodian for the deployments, the mini grids deployments across the country. The custodian for the green climate finance is the NCCC. That's the National Council for Climate Change. So that's NCCC. And one of the pillars for the green climate finance is renewable. So they can actually connect to donor fund agencies and all of that. So these opportunities are there. But like I said, data for the carbon market and climate finance, data is very important. How you can track this data, how you are able to scope emissions, what your business is doing, how you're able to, for you to be able to tap into a carbon credit market. I'm actually very novel. I'm still studying the market. I'm learning as we progress. I know we have the scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions, and then that accountability of that carbon management report is what gives us validation to, and Africa as a region has not even, that's why I'm very curious about the carbon market and the green financing bond and how to access it, because African companies or like Mr. Muyiwa does B2B, how many of the companies in their ESG and sustainability reports are able to do a proper carbon management tracker, if you understand what I mean? And this data is what gives us access to take carbon credits, like the impact credit and all of that. So how do you get money to finance the green economy? Most of these funds are available in the carbon credits, if I make any sense. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I think from this, more importantly, is the documentation, because there are so many companies, renewable companies, green energy companies that are actually doing many of these things. They are adherence to SEG. They are putting out their low carbon emission or energy solutions. But many people don't know them, number one. And more importantly, they themselves are not even documenting what they are doing and how they are making effort to reduce the carbon emission footprint in their region, in their local. And also the issue of, I think we still come back to the issue of partnership. So they don't even know where, who to turn to and where to turn to in terms of getting the finance. I'm meeting all of this prerequisite, but not knowing where to turn to and whatnot. So documentation is very, very key. Knowing what to turn to is very, very key, and all of those things very, very important. I could see some question, and probably we'll just make it this way. We would take one or two questions later after, with the webinar, after we're done with, having this conversation, so that we don't derail the conversation away from the main objective. Mr. Muyiwa, let me come back to you. I would like to ask you, you have been in the space for long. You have your boots on the ground. You're more of someone that, goes to the field and whatnot. If ask you, being, in the renewable energy space, being an operator yourself, what are the common mistakes you think people make, who are seeking not only climate finance, but also finance definitely, generally, in the space to scale the business or to scale the ecosystem? What do you think are the common things that, this is something that should not be done, or you see that this is some kind of mistake that you perceive are being done in the space?
Okay, well, that's a good question, because that also speaks to me, because I'm also trying to raise money, in this space. So from what I have seen, I think one major mistake, or one thing I've seen happen a lot, is that people try to raise money too early. I think everybody has an idea. I have an idea and I want to raise money for it. It happens across board, not only for solar financing. Everybody just wants to raise money. And I think we need to maybe take a step back, because I was in that space. Trust me, maybe about a year ago, I was thinking, I must raise. And I had to really sit with my team and say, are we really ready for this money? And how are we presenting our story? So I think the first mistake is people try to raise money when they're not ready. Because if you don't have a clear picture of, number one, how you're going to use that money, how you intend to even return the money back to to your investors, I think you are just, I'm going to say wasting time, but that's kind of how it seems, because I've also been there, so I'm speaking to myself as well. So, when you go too early, that's one big mistake. Most times people see you as being desperate, because you're just trying your best to say anything that would, attract somebody, and these investors can see through you. They know you're not ready, and so you just realize that you're sending pitches, you are pitching, and you're not getting anything. The truth is, you might have a good product, but you're not just ready for that funding. The second mistake I think we make is we try to paint a very complicated story. Oh, I'm trying to solve power for the entire Nigeria. That's not true. Why don't you say, I'm trying to solve for my locality, or solve for, this sector? You can't solve power for the whole of Nigeria. Even the government can't. So how are you now able to solve that problem for the whole of the country? So I think we try to make the story more complex instead of simplifying it. Like, this is what I want to do, this is how I'm going to do it, and this is what, it will take to get me to profitability. We make it quite difficult for investors to understand, because you also need to understand that a lot of these investors don't really know much about Africa. That's just the truth. So you painting a very complicated story about Africa might not really sell. So that's one other mistake I see we make. The third one I see is while you're painting your picture, this is for solar especially, we tend to underestimate the power of after-sales service, because that is very, very important in solar. Because if I invest in a solar, solar company now, how am I sure that what they're installing is going to last for the next 5-10 years and all that? And we in Nigeria, we have a very bad after-sales, or bad maintenance culture. So people think, oh, I've installed solar, I can just go and rest. I don't need to touch it forever. That's not true. Solar, like every other thing, it's an equipment, an appliance, it requires maintenance. So, we tend to gloss over that possibility of, or that idea of, I need to maintain this system. And trust me, not speaking to that doesn't really help a lot of us, because investors can begin to worry about, okay, if I invest in this, how am I sure that these systems will be around in the next 5-10 years? And if you now have to start replacing this equipment with their own money and all that, then you are losing money. You're not really making any money. So after sales will actually help, prolong the life of the equipment, which actually prevents breakdown and all that, and also save you money in the long run. So we miss that at times. And the last one that I've seen, which also talking to myself, is we pitch to everybody. So I'm pitching to, a seed fund guy. I'm pitching to a Series A person. I'm pitching to a grant person. I'm pitching to everybody. You need to actually have different pitches for all these people, though. It's not the same story that you tell to everybody. You're trying to tell one story to everybody. I don't think that is correct. Even the same way you pitch to an investor, the same way you pitch to someone that wants to borrow you money. I don't think they need to hear the same story. So understanding how to pitch and knowing what story to tell, I think that's another mistake that we make. So those four are the ones that I have seen that I have made or I see it commonly happen. And then it doesn't really help us, because if you continue to make those mistakes, you don't get any traction.
Yeah, absolutely. I've even heard of those who raise funds, millions of dollars, and then in a year or two, probably be too ambitious, or probably the pressure from the investor in terms of return on investment is so high.
Yes.
And before you know it, they close up and it affects the entire business. The recent one is this one that happened in Kenya. There was this, I think it's called Cocoa, right? I think they provide an energy solution on what's it called? I think stove and other things like that. So kitchen appliances, let me put it that way. And there is a lot of funds, I mean, 2, 3 years ago, thereabout. And before you know it, they could not just sustain that level of growth, and they had to close up. So being already, it's a very, very big deal. If you don't know, if you don't have the capacity for it, even if you tell the right story and say, oh, we can do this, we can do this, at the end of the day, when the money comes in, the investors will still have to ask you, you should, bring back or give back, or, give them the return of their investment. So it's very, very important. I also like the fact pardon me, the fact that you mentioned that some people do not understand the intricacies or the intricate complexities of how this thing work. It's not just installing solar, for example. It's not just investing in solar installation or solar execution. At the end of the day, still have to be a follow-up. They still have to be maintenance. They still have to be, and those things also cost some money, and those have to be part of the cost. Why they may not be today, they may not be in the next 2, 3, 4 months. They still have to be part of the cost later on. And if you don't factor all of those in, it's going to be a problem along the line. Brilliant one, Mr. Muyiwa. I think I'll come back to Ms. Joy. You mentioned the fact that in this part of the world, we are not just good with documentation. We still have a kind of weak regulatory system. You mentioned that there's a funding there being made available by DFIs like the World Bank, the many others like that are interested in bringing in funding into the region, to the country. Do you see any African country, in your opinion, that are doing it a little bit better than us here? Well, and what do you think they are doing? If there's any African country that you think that, okay, these guys are getting it right, I think this is something that we can learn 1 or 2 things from them.
Thank you very much for the question. It's the question that I'm being asked all the time when I go on panels. But I would say, as a region, the green space is greenfield for us. It's not brownfield. It's not business as usual. What we are used to with coal and traditional energy, oil and gas. The green energy space is greenfield for us. The carbon markets manage accounting and reporting as greenfield for us. So I don't think Africa as a continent has gotten there. South Africa tried. They didn't do very well. Kenya is making very giant strides. You can see with the Green Revolution what's happening in Morocco. Just mentioning countries that are making high level strides in the industry, but how well have they been successful in terms of going green? Are they making efforts? Yes. How successful? So for us, West Africa, Nigeria being the big brother of West Africa, we are still co-creating. We are still learning the curves and learning the ropes. So we will get there. It will take a while. We will, because one thing is green energy financing. Another thing is leveraging and tapping into carbon credit markets. So I think we need to disintegrate the conversation a bit and understand that there are different tracks of conversation, even if they are related. Like I said, the carbon climate finance funding, the mini grids is one track of it, but it's not. There are so many other. There is a mangrove restoration. There are different elements of climate funding and how it should be deployed. But the solar, the green space, the mini grid deployments is an aspect of climate funding. But the fact is that, are we really tapping into climate funding? Because from what I can see, and now let me speak from a national lens. Now let me reduce the scope into a national lens for Nigeria. For what I can see, there's a lot of patient capital, blended finance. So now, thank God that Mr. Muyiwa is on the call, so he would answer some of my key questions. If 60%, if the government or the DFIs are providing 60% of the capital needed for rollout for this deployment, and what is the guarantee of the affordability metrics of the people you are providing power to? So if we are saying blended finance, what is the actual return on investment? Why is private sector not able to play in that space without accessing grants? And so it has showed you that the ecosystem is not extremely sustainable. I will take a quote, if I'm not mistaken. I think I saw some quotes recently. I saw a quote that, according to the Minister of Finance in the country, I think one of the conversations in Davos, he mentioned something about that the SDG, that's the Sustainable Development Goal, the 17th Sustainable Development Goal, 169 targets, which climate is SDG 13, and affordable and clean energy is SDG 7. It says the SDG requires 5 trillion US dollar per annual to meet its targets. That's 5 trillion US dollars annually to meet its target, to meet SDG target between now and 2030. Between now and 2030 is less than 5 years, but the SDG requires 5 trillion US dollars per annum to meet its target. So is this an ambitious agenda, or is it actually achievable? Do you understand? Because you understand that they handle all the fiscal policies and all of that. So there's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of ropes to learn. If we should be looking at countries that have been successful in deploying and actually, let's say, achieving energy mix or going green, we should be looking at Europe. Am I saying Norway? Am I which other country? I'm going to use Norway. I'm going to
Portugal also has some
Denmark.
good examples.
Yeah, but what I'm also trying to say, and Norway, Denmark, it's because this Scandinavian belt, they've been very known. They share border with the North Sea. They've been very known to be successful in the traditional energy space, but they've also been very successful in going green. And in relation to how Nigeria is like the biggest traditional energy market in Africa, and how we can actually also try to balance the energy mix. So when you're saying Africa, I think Africa is a small ecosystem to play around. Let's look at the wider world and look Europe.
Absolutely.
That's your question,
Okay, but I think I agree with that a bit, but the incentives are different too, and the energy needs are a bit different too. So, and then the something, I think one of the issues is the capital of trust, right? I think, like Mamiwa mentioned, that they don't just trust us, the investors, they don't know us. Not that they don't trust, but they don't know us. Yes, that's the word. They don't like know what's going on. You want to say something?
I don't think they don't know us. It also depends on who brings you to the table.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think they don't know Africans. I don't think they don't know Nigerians. We are the most populous black nation in the world, so there's no problem to say they don't know. But we've got a cultural stigma that says that we are not prudent. There's no discipline when capital is being allocated. So these are the things. These are the bottlenecks we need to try to mitigate to ensure that we attract more funding, and not just attracting more funding. Let's look at it. People are not looking for grants. We need to move from aids to agency. People are not looking for where they will put their money in and know. Mr. Muiwa, I need you to come in here because you are hands on the ground, so you get. I think you understand the gist of what so
I
people
get
are
what you're saying. Yeah.
people are not looking. We're
Yeah.
looking to
So
move from aids to agency. We can't be. We're talking going green. We need to have an actual return on investment on deployment.
So when it comes to energy and when it comes to solar, my take is building is like how we built telcos in those days. We started doing this wireless telcos without having a backbone. So if you notice, we don't really have a strong landline, infrastructure in Nigeria. We just went and started doing masts and all that. So we don't really have landline technology, or never really took ground in Nigeria. So it's also the same thing I see with what do you call it, solar. The reason why solar is actually quite popular in Nigeria is because we don't really have good power. If you look at Europe, they have steady power. So people are not going solar there because they don't have power. It's more of a conscious effort. Two things actually drive solar in those parts of the world. Number one is cost savings, and two, environmental, this climate change thing. Those are the two major things that actually drive solar adoption in those parts of the world. In Nigeria, solar is almost like it's like an alternative for us. It's like this is our main source. People are not using solar as, oh, I want to save costs. People are some people are, but majority of people are going solar because they don't have any other source, or they want to just quit using generator and now have something else that is not making noise or whatever it is. So back to what you said about grants versus investments and everything. I think grants can only get us so far. With investments, you actually now have, metrics tied to it. You have, some kind of, results tied to it. If I invest this in your business or this in this project, this is what I intend to see. I think with grants, it's almost like, go take this money, use it. If it works, fine. If it doesn't, well, you try. But I think with investments, it's more like I expect results. It's result tied. So we need to also, begin to look at results, because there's really work to be done when it comes to electrification in Nigeria and Africa as a whole. Solar can play a part. It will not do everything. So when we think solar, we should think about the entire picture. I think for Nigeria to really solve its power problem, we need to talk about energy mix. People don't seem to talk about that enough, energy mix, because in those parts of the world too we're talking about, solar is not the main source. It's actually part of the mix, so you have, grid power, then you have solar, so you are producing power from, other sources, gas, maybe coal. I think coal is becoming, non-existent coal. So it's more like from gas, from wind, from thermal, from nuclear, all of these other sources. Solar is also part of that mix. We can do that in Nigeria. We just need the right type of investments, because with solar, it's quite, I won't say easy. It's more like have solar farms for, acres. I mean, there are parts of the country where you can just put solar farms for, miles and miles and miles, and you just harness that energy, and you have backup generators or backup batteries, that will supply that power overnight. That is really how, this thing works in, those parts of the world. Even in the Middle East, they're beginning to do that too, where they have really large solar farms. China is doing that as well, large solar farms. The solar inverters will power the, environment during the day, communities during the day. At night, they switch to batteries. The batteries are sized enough to be able to power those, communities overnight.
So my take on this is just like we transitioned from coal in the past to hydrocarbons. Coal became finite, we transitioned to hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons will be finite and we will try, but the sun can never be finite. So therefore, the green energy solar panels have come to stay. My point exactly
They
is
have.
we've got resources. We need better in-country value addition to actually um, amplify these resources into the necessary apparatus needed for the green space. From the World Energy Council perspective, we have the energy trilemma. We talk about energy security. We talk about energy equity, and then we talk about environmental stewardship. So for us in Africa, the West has pushing a lot of it. We can't talk about energy security without talking about energy access. So that fits into your conversation about our regional climes are different, so our needs are. Um, but the real point, and the real question is how successful. Because most of the grids that have been created, you talked about solar farms, good idea. The grids that has been created so far in Africa has been very grant oriented, and
Yeah.
the conversation about moving from aids to agency is extremely important so that we can actually get how can we actually do a proper business, because you are in B2B for solar farms, so how well is it functioning, and why can we not have likes of you instead of likes of more of those queuing up for the desert to power project from the African Development Bank, or the DS project from the World Bank, or because if we don't make it commercially viable, we can't attract capital to it. All we will keep attracting is grants.
Yeah.
That's my perspective that I'm speaking from.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Solar is still seen as being expensive. So that's where, the issue of even partnership comes in too, So most people still see solar as a capital intensive investment. So if you want to do solar for, say, a mini estate or something like that, the outlay is always a lot. And from my conversations with clients, I see that as a huge challenge, except they just have money, and money is not a problem. If they are struggling for funds, it's always a very difficult conversation to spend, 50, 100, a couple 100 million to do this project. Some of them even run into, it could even be up to 1 billion. So I think it's the financials for most of them. You find the grants, the grant mini grids, they're actually the ones I've seen are mostly in rural areas, and they're not very bankable from what I see, because the truth is, how much are you charging these people, per kilowatt hour, and how many kilowatts are they even using to be able to really pay for this thing over time? See, those that can actually pay for them. So now, if I said, oh, I'm going to do a mini grid for an estate with my own money, you just come and buy into it and pay me just like you pay the utility. A lot of people will actually buy into that. So that's power as a service. So I'm providing you power as a service. So now I'm quote unquote your utility company. Now I'm providing you power, but just through solar. People will jump on that. I see that. So when I have these discussions, I see the interest in power as a service. But for a company like mine, that's a heavy, financial outlay on us to start. So that's where also we're looking at partnerships. So if I have banks, if I have investors come in and partner with me, it's easier to do things like that. But when you tell the customer to take that initial capital investment, most times they push back.
Okay,
Most
so
times they push back. So it's still on to financing. Yeah, we'll have that. Yeah. So it's financing. Yeah.
A bulk of our sovereign investment funds is channeled into the green energy. And if power as a service is a solution for bankable green projects, then we should see how to put consortiums together, because I am very sure, I know that the sovereign investment, they call locally, Nigeria, they're called the NSIA. They have a strategy and let's say a department called Ripple. So I was going to ask a question. I'm so sorry, Cyrus, because this is a very interesting conversation that I really like to have, because energy access is the only way to drive industrialization in every economy.
Yeah, right.
If we want to power the economy, we need to actually have these conversations, and actually not just have conversations, but create solutions. So we want to understand, if it is so expensive to deploy solar, why? We've got lithiums, we've got cobalt, we've got the resources. So why can't we not? Why can't we? And that's something I know that the sovereign investment, is it NSI? What are they called? National Sovereign Investment.
Sovereign investments. It's the agency or something.
Agency.
Maybe not agency. I don't know what the A is. So maybe
Agency.
agency or
I don't
something.
think A is agency.
Yeah.
But if it's agency,
I don't think it's agency.
I
Well,
don't
let's
think
call it
it's
agency for now. But I think
Okay,
it's
so
something else.
they have what they call Ripple. So under Ripple is looking at different levels of
authority. Someone said authority.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That's
Authority,
a good backup support. So
Thank you.
Ripple is looking at different levels of engagement. Number one is actually in-country value addition to the natural resources we have, so we don't have to become import dependent, importing this. So I think that's why I was going to ask you, what are your opinions and why do you think solar deployment is actually expensive? So we need to remove those bottlenecks that makes the solar deployment, because it's actually environmentally sustainable for us to go green.
Yes,
and yes,
right.
we need every form of energy to be able to to be able to come out of energy poverty. We need every form of energy, including solar. So what do we need to do to take out these bottlenecks to ensure that we make it more bankable for investors?
Okay, I think the government is already tackling some of these, and I believe that is local manufacturing of solar components in Nigeria. I believe my numbers might not be right here, but I believe maybe 90-95% of the solar components used in Nigeria is imported. I mean, so if you have that huge amount of importation coming in, it's dollar dependent. When dollar is high, it goes up, all of that stuff. So we are heavily dependent on importation for solar equipment in Nigeria. I know a few companies that are doing solar panel manufacturing in Nigeria. I'm not sure if it's even manufacturing or if it's just assembling, because I don't know if all the assembly. So you see, that's another thing too. So manufacturing and assembly are two different things. So you are bringing in the raw materials, putting it together. So you're still importing, things into the country to put it together. There's no way that can be really, really cheap.
Whether we like the Chinese, the Chinese are in town.
I mean,
selling this product to us.
It doesn't even matter who manufacturers. I think we can really learn from the Chinese. We can actually partner with them to do this manufacturing here. They already have the technology. So we don't have that technology, or at least I don't think it's widespread amongst we Nigerians. We still need to learn, or at least get some kind of partnership. I believe because we have the resources in Nigeria, there's lithium and all of that in Nigeria, we can actually partner with Chinese to start doing some of this manufacturing in Nigeria. That should bring down the costs. It should bring down the costs. And I believe the reason why costs are still high right now is mostly because it's imported. There's a lot of imported products in the country, so definitely the cost will be high until we begin to manufacture in Nigeria. We can't drastically drive down that cost.
And that's my
and you mentioned something about the economic of scales, like how much, because power is not just about supply. Power is also about the demand side of things, or who is using the power, how much are they willing to pay for the power, and whatnot. And it's more bankable, or it's more attractive, where people can pay more and use more, then you can supply more. So I think that's also a very big part that many people don't like to talk about. For example, people say we need 24 hours power in Nigeria. And of course, I agree with that. But the question is that how many people can pay for 24 power of supply in Nigeria without it being heavily subsidized? And if it's not heavily subsidized, and people don't want to pay for that kind of power supply or that kind of solar energy supply, then you start finding a situation where people scale back on their energy use, and that could
Energy
also be
consumption. And then
and
let us talk about energy efficiency. So if you
yes,
look at the trilemma talks about energy access, energy security. Energy security for Africa, we can't talk about security without talking about access. We don't even have access. So what are we securing when we don't have access?
Yeah.
With the other trilemma talks about energy equity, and under equity we talk about disparate. How is the energy spread across? Can people afford it? But if we look at a backward integration into this, we will also understand that once you power an economy, affordability issue becomes minimal.
Becomes minimal, yeah.
Yeah. So you
absolutely.
You fix that problem of affordability, because now people can afford it because they have the resources to afford it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to get the questions of the attendees, but the time is well fast spent. We're supposed to
But
be
let
here
me
for
quickly
this.
take Zimbabwe so it doesn't look like we are very sub-Saharan Africa. We're very
Okay.
I will quickly take Zimbabwe, Southern Africa. You talked about custodian. These things are information that you can easily Google and get answers to. So, from the government perspective, Zimbabwe has like national designed authorities where you can that are housed by I think is a different or different is a coalition of different ministries. So we've got the Climate Change Management Department under the Ministry of Environment and Climate. Is it Ministry of Environment, Climate and Wildlife? That's under. I'm just trying to check my database that I have in front of me. So the Zimbabwe has that. There's also some coalitions around the Ministry of Finance in Zimbabwe that handles the fiscal policy for the climate finance. So it's important that we also, as active players in Africa, we need to do our own homework and do our own research, understand. I can see another question around triple C, because all these things I did not sit down in my house and I got the information. I went to look for them. Information that you try to find sticks with you better than information that is given to you. So
Comes to you.
you understand that it's important for you to go and do your own research. And on that's background to why we talked about when I was introducing myself, I was very brief because I felt we logged into the call maybe 20 minutes late. G-Sel network is what we do with G-Sel is to try to get innovations together. We come together as an ecosystem of educators, innovators, professionals, government people, sit down to discuss issues around education, environment, and energy, and then come together and build a consortium on how to find solutions to these problems. So the point is that if you don't sit down to even dig out problems, you will not even know practical steps on how to actually find solutions to this problem. So it's important that I see myself as a student of life. I continue to dig for information every day so that I can find, because I am in this life to make impact. So if I'm not finding solutions, so you don't just wake up and say, oh, who are they? If you are a Zimbabwean and you are a proud Zimbabwean, you should be able to find answers to these at your fingertips so that you can actually create impact in your local economy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I'm saying too long, but
No, no, please go ahead.
look through questions and see as much as I can do. Muyiwa has questions around EPC. Those are practical questions. Muyiwa can answer them. I answer policy questions. Somebody said, I would like more information about NCCC. You can slide in my DM. I'm very responsive and I will see how I can support you with if you want an introduction to anybody. But let's all try, and development starts from you. It's an inward thing. Think about what you can do for your immediate economy, just like how you want the economy to also respond to you. Thank you very much, and it was such a pleasure to be part of this.
Thank you so much, Joy. And maybe before we go, I would like Miwa to respond to the question. How can, as a startup, to partner with your company in knowledge sharing, EPC, and other activities in the value chain? Is there a way they can get in touch with you? Is there what's something they need to know? Somebody's asking here at the question box.
Okay, I mean, you can reach out to me. Let's discuss. Let's know what value you bring to the table. Let's know what your expertise is. Let's know what your your stage of this startup space is, so that we can talk without having discussions, we don't really know how we can share value. So reach out to me. You can send me a message on LinkedIn, send me a message on Instagram. Is my number on this
not really, but you can just
you
give
can
me
reach me on social media too.
Okay.
Muyiwa Sami is my social media. Hit me up on Instagram, Facebook. I think it's the same handle. Muyiwa Sami, one word.
So what I would do is that after this webinar, I'm going to send out email including the LinkedIn of our panelists, so you can add them on LinkedIn and then reach out to them. They're going to accept your request, probably with a note, so that they know that you are the one that send in the request, and then they can have conversation with you around this. Thank you very much, everyone.